Okay, so this is a question that I get asked about a lot, is what brush are you using? So I thought that it would be fun to do a quick little brush tutorial today. Because while I don't think that there's anything necessarily wrong with asking this question, I just think that we as the artists, as the designers, we should kind of just get to know our tools a little bit better and be able to make that decision for ourselves based on what we want, how we want something to look, and actually know why we're choosing the tools that we are choosing. Truth is, I don't always use the same brush every single time. There are a lot of factors that go into this, right? It's the kind of the brand of the brush. They're probably going to be slightly different. The size that you're writing, the type of paper you're using, the consistency of the ink, if it's really thick, if it's really thin. Those are all things that are going to affect the look of your lettering. So this actually just came up for me recently. I was working on an envelope order, and my kind of go-to brush, which I'll talk about that in a second, it wasn't giving me the results that I really wanted. So I made the decision to go with a smaller brush. So I'm going to show you guys right now those two brushes, and we'll see the differences between them. These are the two brushes that I'm going to demonstrate with today. So the first one is this 10/0. This is the one that I kind of mentioned before is sort of like my go-to. This is the one that I always kind of gravitate towards. I use for most things. This is the one that I recommend the most. If you're in my course, this is the one that I use throughout the course and that I recommend as well. So this is a 10/0 round. This is just the Artist Loft. These are both actually Artist Loft, which is the Michaels brand. Nothing fancy. So we have our 10/0, and then here we have our 20/0. This is actually a spotter brush, which is very similar to a round, but it is actually just a little bit smaller, like finer hairs. So you can see here the 20/0 is shorter. It's a little bit shorter, but it's also just more narrow in general, and that's partly because it's just a smaller size, and also partly because it's a spotter. So it's kind of hard to tell with these smaller brushes. But the round brushes are known for having kind of like a thicker base or like middle area, so what we call the belly. And that's purpose is to like hold liquid. So these are really good for like watercolor because it can hold that pigment. It's one of the reasons that I sort of prefer the 10/0 because it is a little bit bigger and can hold some more ink. However, the 20/0, although it doesn't hold as much ink, you're going to have to dip it a little bit more often. It will give you a much finer, crisper line than this 10/0 is able to. So I'm going to show you first with the 10/0. All right, and now I will do the same exact thing with this 20/0, and we'll compare them. Okay, so now we can kind of just look at these together and just kind of compare them. So here we have, this was our larger brush, the 10/0, and this one was the 20/0 spotter. And they're pretty close, but you can definitely see the differences, and they just have a little bit of a different look. I think this one is just a little bit more bold in general, and it kind of, looking at it from farther away, it kind of fills out more of the space, where this one is a little bit more airy because the lines are a little bit more delicate. So I did end up using this 20/0 smaller brush for my recent envelope order, but it doesn't make either of them wrong, you know what I mean? So they're both right. It's just a matter of what you want as the designer, how you want it to look. So that's why I do really think that it's hard to go off of what somebody else is using for maybe a similar project, because it's just going to depend on what your preference is at the end of the day. And I really think that the best thing you could do is to just experiment. And you know, when I go to start a project, I'll sit down and I'll grab a couple different brushes, a couple different variations, and I'll do some samples, and just from there we'll make that decision based on what kind of look I want with that project in mind. So I hope you thought this was helpful. Let me know.